Hey guys, this is another episode of Part Time Rambles. Today we're going to be talking about how to handle regret and would it be better to always be happy. I'm here with Tyan
Hello.
and my boy Bruno here,
Hey, what's up?
and we're going to go ahead and get right into it. So, what do you guys think in general? Would it be better to always be happy?
Can I go first?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. I guess this is a funny topic because I feel like our human nature, we're we wouldn't like that sort of complacency, right? Like if everything was just dandy all the time, our natural reaction is to just get bored, I feel like. And the reason I say that is because if you ever remember like the story of El Dorado, not El Dorado, well, I guess it's related to that. But the whole idea of the city of gold, right? Like these people
Mhm.
find this city and it's like everything's great there. Like there's no illness, everyone has money or like wealth to some degree, and then there's no poverty, there's no suffering in any way. But the visitors there end up getting so bored that they just leave. I don't know if you're familiar with that story, but I always found that like a fascinating topic. So that's why, like, I guess my answer to that question is no, but it's just weird because it seems kind of counterintuitive.
Um, yeah, I definitely agree with that concept, especially with because when you're bringing up the city of gold, that idea I feel like is with perfection is
Yeah.
what kind of goes in line with, and this whole idea everyone like strives for perfection and wants to be perfect or wants to be in some perfect land, but like they don't really think about what perfection is. Like they're like, I want to be perfect, and then they're like, well, I also want to go and do this thing that's kind of terrible, but it's
Yeah.
fun. And it's like, okay, so do you want to have fun or do you want it to be perfect? Because those things are hard to do in tandem because you have for it to be perfect, you have to be selfless for everything to like roll. If everyone is doing stuff for other people, then everyone is always taken care of, and this level of perfection and kindness and happiness can arise. But you wouldn't be able to do things that you always want to do. So then you have to ask yourself this question of what is happiness, this emotional connection that you have. Because like, because you're saying like, as far as nature goes for me, like
Hmm.
emotions is natural, right? But it's to me, it's almost like this other evolutionary trait. So not all animals have emotions. They're actually a very small spectrum of animals that even can. So if it's this evolutionary idea of what emotions and happiness means to us, then why do we experience these things in the first place? So do we need to feel happy all the time? If we felt happy all the time, would that benefit us at all?
Ah, you actually have an interesting point. Are you gonna interject at all, Tyrell? I don't know if I'm like stealing airtime.
Oh,
I don't
oh
know
no,
how
you're
this
fine.
works.
I'm just
I might
listening.
be.
I'll probably I'll take in I'm just thinking about things. I'll probably when I have a
A
moment in time
comment
I'll
Get
you'll
come
the
in.
kill
interject?
shot. He'll get the kill shot at the end.
Nah.
Yeah.
It's because the thing that you just mentioned right now that actually I didn't even think about is like the evolutionary benefit of the emotions, right? Like they have to serve a purpose, whether it was to, I guess the main function was to get us to reproduction age, and then we can pass on our genes, right? And some
Hmm.
emotions help us do that, like for example, fear, because then you're avoiding things that would cause you harm, typically, right? Like if you're not
Hmm.
fearful, then you just might just, do risky things or just go out and jump off a cliff, whatever, and you would never pass your genes. It's weird because then that kind of begs the question, at least for me, then what is the role of happiness? I guess it just tells the being that you're on the right path, I suppose, right? Like,
It could be because that's what's funny. Because to me, it's now hard, at least in our current society, it gets harder
mm-hmm,
to separate what our nature emotions are, things like fear that are baseline that most animals have, and then
mm-hmm,
things like love or pity that like other animals don't really carry as much
yeah,
these complex emotions that come out. And then because we live in society now for so long, now there's like evolutionary play that society has had a role in because we've just been running it into our genes for so fucking long.
yep,
So now there's like this role of, are you happy because your natural state, because you have your desires met, or are you happy because of your state in the society? And that's where it becomes conflicting because I feel like you can do things that make you naturally happy. Like, oh, all I do is I eat my food, I have my shelter,
Hmm.
I do that stuff. And then honestly, all I like to do after that is like read a book. Like, those
Yeah.
things make you feel fulfilled. Everything after that, like trying to have a bunch of friends on Facebook or doing all this other extra stuff, buying some really cool, I don't know, video game that you would never play, but now you bought it because your friends did and you play it once a month. But like, you're making these small efforts that like think will bring you happiness, but are actually not even happiness. Yet
Hmm.
people wish they were in this constant state of happiness, which I find it funny to me because everyone's like, I just wish I was happy all the time. But the effort it takes to be happy all the time makes most people unhappy.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think that question, if you were to ask like most people, their knee jerk reaction would be to say yes. The problem
Hmm.
is to always be happy, and if it's better to always be happy, it's kind of a hard thing to say because there's definitely wrong times to be happy, and some people might disagree. But there's moments where you the stuff that happens in this world and around us, and even if you were to ignore like outside of your like immediate like surroundings, there's stuff that happens in your surroundings that's just you can't be happy during. And if you are happy during those times, it's probably a little unnatural and forced. And so like
Hmm.
you have to like I feel like you have to experience those other things to progress as a person. And to like always be happy would almost be like negligent. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you actually bring up a very interesting point because you're right. Like, imagine just like at that point, if you're always happy, that means nothing's affecting you. Your grandma could die the next day. You're at the funeral, and not even a tear being shed, and you just probably look like a sociopath to everyone else in the room. And you're right. Like, I guess, yeah, the knee jerk reaction would be to say that it would be better, but I don't think so because the beautiful thing about life is that we have a wide spectrum of emotions, right? Like even Tyan mentioned it previously. We feel like very intricate emotions that we give very precise words to, like love or apathy, empathy, and those are pretty complex, especially when you start getting into like empathy and stuff, because that requires social bonds and social, relationships to be formed. And
Hmm.
like you said, some animals don't have that. I honestly think that's mostly a mammal thing. I don't know if that's true, but I just something I've noticed. It's definitely like a lot of mammals are pretty social creatures, it seems.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when we're talking about this, do we want to try to define it?
Define like happiness or like actually answer if it would be better to be always happy or not.
Like because to start answering it, would you want to try to define it? Because there's so many happiness is so different to people. If we
Yeah.
gave some a
Yeah.
broad definition, could
Yeah,
lead it some.
I'm down. First I want to split it up. Um, I don't know what to call societal happiness because I don't want to say like natural and artificial because I think that's something that we as a society has done as well is act like society is not natural, but
Mhm.
that doesn't make sense because if humans created society, then it's still of nature,
Mhm.
but it's not something that everything in nature has tried to achieve or has achieved to this level, which I understand because I don't think there's a whole lot of creatures that have created societies and maintained societies in such a way that their societies change their evolution. I definitely know there's some, like dolphins, frickin' wolf packs,
Mhm.
a few others. But as far as actually building it so that like they persist for as long as they do, it's definitely not a normal thing. Do y'all have any suggestions for a different word for societal, or is just societal fine?
I think I know what you mean by societal, so that works for me.
Yeah, it works
Okay.
for me.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like I know what you mean, like being hesitant on using that word. But I think that's probably the most apt word that I can think of right now. If I come up with a better one, maybe, but no, that's be fine.
Okay. So, at least in my eyes, natural happiness. Um, the the emotional pleasantries that we feel to reinforce certain um, behaviors that aid in our personal survival, I think, are what they're more related to. And then societal happiness is essentially the same thing, but it's related to our success in society, not
Yeah, as a
necessarily
whole.
our personal, yeah, not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily our personal survival. Because you could sacrifice, because people do it all the time, right? We sacrifice our personal well-being so that we can feel
Help others.
success in the society that we're in.
Yeah. Oh, that's true too. Yeah. Even just personal gain causes
Hmm.
self-sacrifice in a sense.
Because
Um,
I don't see, because there's also a fine line for me between like helping others and like actual self-sacrifice. I don't think we put enough emphasis on sacrifice sometimes. So people will be like, oh man, sacrifice to me is me not being able to go to the movies to help my friend. And I'm like, oh my Christ, dude, that's not like really. You just go tomorrow. That's come on. So it like gets so watered down. But like to help, because be you can help somebody and be selfless. To be selfless isn't like crazy either. Just like someone can be a little selfish, you can be a little selfless. And if everyone's just a little selfless, then it kind of dominoes down.
Yeah, if you're trying to like take out watered down like sacrifices, because if you really look at it, like a lot of sacrifices that you're making when you say things like you're helping a friend, it's usually uh beneficial to you, whatever you're doing that you're considering a sacrifice. Like helping you move out to Vegas, that's beneficial to me because I'm coming over there for free now. Now, yeah, I had to sacrifice a weekend, but like
See, but that's instant
that's
gratification versus delayed
delayed.
gratification,
Yeah.
which people have an issue with too, right? It's like seeing that sacrifice, the sacrifice of you not being able to do anything for that weekend, but weekends down the line will be really fun. And so that's why I kind of I agree with that point, and that's why I feel like you sacrifice. Feel like there needs to be a different word or something because people use that word and it's like they're not using it correctly and they're acting like that's a big thing or that's a sacrifice and this is
Mm-hmm.
something I truly had to give up when it's more like a sacrifice has always been like a switch, you know what I mean? Like yes, to humans, me killing another human to the gods looks like a big deal, but to the gods it's like I made you anyway. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
trade. So when people use
It's
it in this
true.
weird way, it's like I don't know whether it's supposed to be a big deal or not a big deal when using that word.
Yeah, it's kind of lost that value of like seriousness. It's either it's not serious or it's serious as hell.
and you're trying to use this for to explain societal happiness. Are you going
um,
with this?
when we're explaining societal happiness, we're saying how happiness can be affected by certain sacrifices,
Yeah. Okay.
but and then it was just it was just like stating to make sure that that word is we are using it a specific way and we ensure that we
Mm-hmm.
continue to use that way. So
Okay.
if we want to use it to be are we using it to be describing sacrifices as like it's a thoroughly strong word, or are we like no, it's just a trade, like you
We can
sacrifice
change it to
something for something
trade
else,
because you're making a it's a trade. I mean, you could say
right?
if you want to say. I mean, I don't think it's a big problem using the word sacrifice, but I know what you mean by saying it's kind of watered down. But you can say, but I guess you want to switch to trade. That also makes sense. You're trading this to get this.
We can
Mm-hmm.
use sacrifice. I just want to make sure that we
You
make it clear
understand?
when
Okay.
people are listening it, yeah,
Yeah.
on our podcast, so they know as well. We see sacrifice as simply just a trade. We don't see it as the huge, oh my God,
God,
I'm giving
sacrifice, blood.
this. Yeah.
Okay. So then the whole thing about the happiness all the time, whether it would be a good thing, w- you're saying like if it was everyone was happy or like just one person, or what were you trying to say? Or we're still defining that, I guess, huh?
Well, I think that is that's kind of interesting. Well, that's what makes it hard. So, if the definition of happiness, right, is if we're talking about natural happiness, it becomes hard if everyone's happy, right? Because that's where I feel like you run into this kind of conflict, where if you're talking about natural happiness, where everybody's looking out for their own personal survival, if everyone's happy on one hand, if everyone's just searching for their own personal survival, you could have multiple conflicts depending on how everybody perceives how they will survive related to everybody else. But you could also
Hmm.
view it as if every single person's happy, then in unison they understand how essential everyone else is to their state of happiness and personal survival, thus they work in perfect tandem.
Okay. So like try to answer this question. Let's have two scenarios.
Mhm.
One is we leave out the inedible conflict that there would, like, everyone being happy is um really not possible because everyone would want different things. Let's not take that out of the equation for now, and then we'll come back to it. So then, if we could have everyone happy and taking
Yeah,
out
yeah.
that conflict, then would it be
Hypothetically.
better to do it?
If like most people are happy, is what you're saying
No, no.
though?
If every so
Oh,
I'm taking
everyone.
yeah, yeah, everyone.
Yeah.
So I'm taking
Okay.
if we take out the conflict of people wanting a certain thing and a person wanting another thing, that would make it
Like
inedible.
we're
Like,
in heaven.
yeah, yeah, basically. So would it be better to be happy in a perfect scenario where there's no one is having a conflict? You understand?
Yeah.
Because even
Hmm.
in a world without conflict, you'd still have times where being happy would still be, I guess, considered inappropriate.
Hmm.
I see that's just funny though. Would you if okay, so if everyone's happy in this world, the times where those conflicts would happen shouldn't really occur.
Well,
Be-
I'm not like that. I mean, like, okay, a family member goes away.
oh, I see. That's
Would
what
they
you're
see it like, oh man, like it's still happy because they're going to, or they live their life good, blah blah blah. You're happy.
saying.
Yeah. So like, is it better like that? What is that better theoretically? Just
Oh,
You know,
theoretically, I think it's okay. That's what we need to define. I don't think we need to define happiness. I think we need to not need to define what would be better. Are we saying this world is better
hmm.
because it's easier?
Yeah, yeah,
Or are we
exactly. That's
saying
what I'm
this
thinking.
world is better because it's more fun? I think the world would be, if you're saying better is easier, I think
Hmm.
the world would be thoroughly easier because it's like dealing with one emotion the whole time. If
Yeah,
you're always happy, it's just one constant. You never have to worry about a whirlwind of emotions. All you're doing is reacting to the world in front of you. It's like, you know, those people that can stay super calm under pressure? It'd be like feeling like that the entire time because you only feel that way.
yeah. And it's kind of like the El Dorado thing again. Like that world, that city of where everyone's fine, nothing's going on. There's no poverty. There's no famine. Like I guess in the terms of just pure outcomes, I suppose that world would be better.
If you
But I
already
just
exist within it,
yeah, if you already would exist within it, but like if we were to transition into that world and having known what is was like before, I don't know. I feel like I said, my instinct says like our human nature just wouldn't be able to cope with just being like stuck on one emotion, or at least that side of the spectrum of emotions. Let's put it that way, the positive side, and there's just no negative. But maybe that's just I don't know, because yeah, like it also goes back to like the idea of heaven to me. Like I remember as a kid, bro, and I would go to church and something, and then they would talk about heaven and like infinitely living forever. Like that always like hurt my head because I would be like, really, like you just don't die, like just time just keeps going on. And I was like, that just doesn't seem like possible, and it also seems kind of like low key painful. But apparently it's not. So I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if it's my human like instinct or something like hardwired into my reptile brain or something. But yeah, I feel like my answer says no, but pure outcome, I guess it would be better. You know, I don't know.
I think I can see what you're saying. The outcome definitely would be better, but if we had, like you said, if we had to transition, I think it would feel. I just would feel wrong.
Yeah,
Like it.
unauthentic.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like I don't know. You imagine you get to see all these people. Everyone's kind. Everyone's chill. Everyone's always happy. It's kind of like we're on drugs all the
Yeah,
time.
pretty
But
much.
like, I'm trying to think of what we would do. Cause like, do
Yeah.
do we still do normal things? Like, do people still just go out and kill other people, but we just feel happy
Well, that'd be
about
interesting.
it?
Yeah,
Like, is it the same world? We just always feel. Because honestly, then it kind of would be better. Like, it would still be
I
the same
guess.
shitty world. I would just never have to feel shitty about it.
Yeah,
It's
you
like
just
if
wouldn't
the
feel bad.
entire world was sociopaths, that's okay. Like, it sucks when there's like five sociopaths and when there's 20 fucking feelers. But if everyone can't feel, or we always feel happy, then it's
Mm,
like,
I
I guess
guess
it's better.
that'd be if everything was always happy, but normal, but everyday things kept happening. Like that person killed someone, you're still happy. You're taking them to court, but
Yeah, exactly.
you're in jail. You're just like, well, it's the same thing.
Oh, it's
It's
cool. Yeah, it's just chilling.
you chill about everything.
Yeah.
Literally, what's funny about that is it's like we just described that you could really go through your entire life and it's just about attitude.
Yeah, for real. At the end of the day, at the end of the day, it's just got the way you look at things. Come on, guys. Really.
honestly, okay. When you say it like that, I do think it would be
Yes,
better. But that,
I guess
but
so.
if I was to,
Yeah.
if I was to go into a world like that, I'd be afraid. Like there's something's wrong with you.
Yeah. From the outside in, it
Yeah.
looks pretty
Oh yes.
outlandish. Yeah, it
Oh,
would
if I
look
had
outlandish.
full range of emotions and you just walk into that, oh my
And it's funny that you say oh it's like everyone taking drugs, or you said something about drugs because it reminds me of the game We Happy Few. I don't know if you've
god.
heard of it, but like
Yeah,
I guess
yeah.
everyone in society is giving like happy pills all the time. If you stop taking them, they like kick you out or try to get rid of you. That you're
And
not under the control.
Spell. Yeah.
there's a book too. It's fuck, what's it called? We read it with 1984. But it's about this like society, and they're given these pills and these drugs that they take, so they're all happy, and they always want to fuck all the time. So like,
Oh, I like this
yeah,
society.
it's so yeah. But then if you stop taking it, it fucks you up because you start noticing what's going on, and then you're
Yeah.
like, ooh, ooh. And that's what's funny. It's like if everyone's taking the drugs all the time and everyone's okay with it, then it's okay. But like
Is it?
it's right? Like, but is
Yeah.
it if you stop taking the drug and your body feels not okay with it? It's like, is this okay?
Yeah.
And that's what I
Damn.
think is funny. I feel like sometimes we can argue with our body. That's how we grow in evolution. Like our body will tell us something is wrong, but we're like, nah, this is okay, and you can get stronger from it. But
Hmm.
other times it can also damage you, and it's like figuring out when that's okay and when it's not. And when it comes to things like happiness and sadness, that's what I think those emotions help us do. By
Yeah.
feeling a certain way about something, it helps us tell us whether we should or should not continue or how we can adapt around it. But if you
Hmm.
feel happy all the time, you kind of lose
That
any
motivation.
guide. Yeah, you're just
Yeah.
like, oh, no matter what I do, I feel this way.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what's also
That's,
weird. Like, does any event just make you feel happier? Because then that would be crazy. Like, if I play video games, I just feel happy. If I play something else, I just feel happier.
that's weird. Yeah.
Would you actually lose motivation if you're always happy though? You'd
that
be
that's
always
what's like.
content with what you're doing. You're always enjoying. You'd be
Well,
enjoying
I
what
see what
you're
you're saying.
doing.
It depends on if you feel more content about things or if everything feels the same
Same.
contention.
Yeah.
Because that's what's hard is like if you don't feel anything else, how could you have variation in contention?
Yeah.
Because if you're content with playing video games just as much as you're content with sitting and staring at a wall, then I don't see why no motivation would continue.
Yeah.
Mm. When you put it like that, it's probably not better because then we would just die off. Now,
Yeah.
But
Low
if you
key.
felt more happy doing things that made you survive, you know what I mean? Like if you felt more happy eating than you did staring at a wall, then it wouldn't affect it as much.
Yeah,
because we still seek to feel happier.
I guess if you go that way, then that if we keep up with the survival instincts and the always happy, then it'd be fine. Here's a question: do relationships ever end with separation if you're always happy?
Dude,
I
it
mean,
would turn into a giant orgy.
that's what I was gonna say. At that point, like everyone would just be happy fucking each other, right? Like it doesn't matter who you're fucking at that point. You can be fucking the hottest model, and then next day you're fucking the fattest chick, and it don't matter. You're happy either way. It don't matter at that point. I guess, bro. That's funny.
Ooh.
Oh shit, this
Does
world's sounding kind of dope now that I think
Yeah,
about it, man.
when
Shit,
we're
I
putting it like this, and we add the survival instincts and the natural stuff, I'm gonna go ahead and say my answer is it would be better. It is
okay,
what
but
it is.
here's a quick question though.
Yeah, tell me.
If okay, so does does being happy mean giving consent?
Well, in that world, because
In
in
that
general.
world, I presume. I
Yeah,
mean, yeah, it would have to be in general, right? Because I don't know,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
because could you say no in that world in general? Like, if you're always
You
happy
Well, you
about,
kind of already said
you
someone
could.
murdered somebody, so
but it,
Yeah.
so
but
if you
does
so then that's also possible. Well,
it's possible, but I have to think about how the interaction happens. Is this person just like, you know, murdering you would make me feel really happy right now, and the other person's like,
You're right.
okay, that
Yeah.
would make me happy too. Then that like doesn't
Is
matter.
that
But
consent?
is
Yeah, I
yeah,
guess.
but is it like this guy's like, you know what, I want to murder you, and he's like, actually no, and then he stabs him, and he just kind of laughs because all he can feel is happiness.
well,
Yeah.
okay. If all you can, there's okay. So if all you can feel is happiness, but we've already said that there's different levels of happiness, right?
Hmm.
But because you're saying you're happier to eat than at staring at a wall. So the different levels of happiness would just turn into the different version of sadness. You wouldn't be sad, but you know you don't enjoy it as much as the other. You're
Yeah,
still
exactly.
happy. So then it would just be a less evolved version of what we already have. Is what it
Yeah,
sounds.
some sort of
I mean,
Except there wouldn't
appreciation.
be there'd be no regret or anything. I don't know.
but that's what I'm saying is it's like just because he feels less happy though, does that make them want to stop? Or is it like, well, I'm still happy? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, does somebody feeling more? Because I'm also picturing the dopamine response, right? I'm picturing like literally your brain is always firing this dopamine, so you're
Hmm.
like constantly cracked the fuck out. So if I still get dopamine fire, but then you still get tolerance. No, tolerance can't be a thing if you're always
This,
happy.
yeah,
There's no tolerance. Um, so you'd still have dopamine firing. It would still be like, this feels good. This is good. It's not like it's it'd be like, ooh, this feels good. Oh my god, this feels good. Versus like, oh, this feels good. Oh, that doesn't feel good. Like, I still wouldn't have a shy away response. I feel like if
Yeah.
someone stabbed me, I would be like, okay, but can you still feel pain? You're just happy about it? Fuck. So it like
I don't
hurts.
know. Such a
So
weird
you're
world.
like, BDSM, like it hurts the fuck out of you, but you're
Dude,
like, oh my god.
so
I guess so. Yeah, it
so
has to be.
here's the thing. Originally, when we said the survival instincts thing, and I'm like, okay, it'd be fine. It doesn't sound like that. But I think in a world, let's say tomorrow our world was like this, then
Hmm.
I still think that we would die out as a species because like the things that make our society work, even if you like remember survival instincts and stuff,
Mhm.
we wouldn't move further. I don't think we'd progress because we
Yeah,
just
I feel you.
yeah. So like I still think it would be, I guess overall it'd be. I don't think this world would be bad, but overall we wouldn't. It'd be stagnant.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
there's
wouldn't
there's
necessarily
no
be.
like, yeah, there's no motivation, like you said. There's no competition. There's no like drive besides just everything's okay. So when everything's okay, there's no need to change anything, right? Like at that point, right? For the most part,
Yeah.
Seeing
there's no, yeah.
So if that's the case, why do we strive for this?
What for happiness for everyone?
Well, I think it's because people aren't striving to be happy all the time. They just want to be happy
Yeah, yeah.
overall.
Oh yeah, overall, there you go. That's a good way to put it. You don't want to be suffering most of your life. You want to be in some sort of comfort for most of your life, whether it's happiness or something else. It could be anything. It could be
But see,
excitement.
that's what I think it
Yeah.
is, though. I think people strive for comfort all the time.
Hmm.
Because they keep striving for comfort all the time, they end up in more discomfort.
Yeah, that's the American, trap. The American dream trap. The Lenny and Larry. The what was that book called? You know what I'm talking about?
uh,
The strong retard
Oh, mice and men.
of mice and men.
oh.
Yeah, it's like that book. They're always hustling just for the wabbit farm, and it never happens.
I want a blue one. Dude, that book,
I know.
man. Oh, that book.
Depressing book. Don't remind me.
It totally happens,
They
dude.
took him out there like Old Yeller, man.
Lenny totally got to go to the farm.
I know
Yeah,
he did.
yeah, he
Oh
did, I
fuck.
guess.
Yeah, George. I remember. You're right. It was Lenny and George. Yeah. Man, I forgot what we were talking about. Oh yeah, the American dream and the trap. And yeah, you're right, man. Like that's the sad thing. Like, and people's pursuit of happiness, they end up just being miserable. Isn't that the strangest thing?
I think people set their expectations too high. Like, I've
Mhm.
always been the type of person to. I'm a realist and a pessimist. So I have my. All I need, I want enough money to support a family, and that's. And I want a family, and that's it. As I get that, that's what I want. I'm happy.
That's
Anything
good,
more than
man.
that is a bonus. That's a
Yeah,
bonus.
exactly.
We're
Exactly.
also a spectator, though, and that's what fucks us up. Is like we spent a lot of our early childhood observing and standing outside of the societal, like we're still inside society, but sometimes we'd sit
Obviously.
outside the frame watching it and seeing how things work while the rest of the people never did that. And now it's like awkward because so many people don't know what they want for their own personal happiness. Instead, they
Yep.
know what in society makes people happy. So they just
Quote
try to get
unquote.
that and they hope they get happy.
I feel like this is a different topic, and people might take
Yeah.
this the wrong way, but I feel like the average. That's the problem with that is the average American is failed through child, and like that's coming
Yeah,
from a
for
public
sure.
education stance and just like what you're
Parenting.
made to expect and how you learn about America and like what it actually is, and so like you're
It's
not gonna you think of these things that you want to do, and then you realize you're not able to do those things, especially when people are like again most like I said what I would want to be happy is fine, but that would be considered middle class, and middle class is only getting more and more issues piled on as the years go, and
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
just but I think that's kind of it might be a different topic.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is actually getting into another topic that I'm actually kind of down to dive into, but it's pretty goat. I love this. Yeah, because it's so true. This whole American propaganda that we're fed, and like these ideals that we hold up so high, but they're so destructive. Like consumerist, ideals, and like, oh, you need this item to be happy, or you need this status, or you need this. It's always this external source, materialistic thing that's gonna bring you joy, and that's what sucks because people, end up believing that they get the thing, they're happy for a week, and then you go back to your baseline of what's next, and it's
Yeah,
like you never have that internal sense of fulfillment. Instead, you're allowing yourself to be fed like a machine externally, just responding to your environment instead of taking internal control of your emotions and stuff like that. Like you said, sometimes you just have to realize, take take account. You don't need that much to be happy. You really don't. Most people don't realize that. It's kind of crazy, but it's just propaganda. To me, it's just American propaganda or something, man. Like we just failed as a teaching as a society.
yeah.
We really did.
I'm hoping that's changing in the coming years, but we'll see.
It is. I don't know if you guys are familiar with like minimalism and stuff, but that's another thing that's been like really blowing my mind, just getting out of that consumerist trap, because it is a trap, bro. It's a fucking just stupid.
You know, Tom, are you still there?
I'm still here, yeah. Yeah.
Now, do we want to? Now we have a choice here. we can continue down this lane, or we can switch to our other topic, which is handling regret. Or if you want, we can even hit this topic and then double back to finish on what we were moving on to talk about after the happiness topic.
It's a tough choice. I don't wanna.
I-
I don't wanna regret
I'm
it later.
this guy. This guy. I'm down to go down this path about like people's striving for more than what they need, or like the pursuit of happiness causing more pain than it does actual happiness. Because I
Okay.
think that's a very interesting topic personally.
Okay, I'm done. I'm done to talk about that. But before we move on, because it is a slightly different topic, let's go ahead and give our answers to the first question. Do we think everyone being happy would be better? Want to start
All
off,
right.
time or bro?
Uh, I'll go real quick because I guess my answer would be awkwardly yes, and like in terms of the outcome, like I said, outcome wise, I'm very much a person that's just worried with everyone being happy, right? Like I feel like the more happiness there is in the world, or like the more less suffering there is in the world, the better. So in that measure, in that scale, yes, but in a lot of other metrics, no. So I guess no. My bad. I doubled back,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I guess
No,
no.
I get you. I get you.
Just
Time.
on one metric.
Um, the more that I think about it, at first I was like, nah, honestly. But now that I think about it, I think it kind of would be better. If we're talking about the world where it's pretty much the same as this one, but everyone's happier instead.
Hmm.
Um, Only because I feel like it gives an opportunity for the heroes to get more of a chance to take leadership. Because I feel like negative energy perpetuates a lot faster through people, especially nowadays. Maybe it wasn't
Hmm.
like that back then, but nowadays people sap onto depression like fucking flies to shit. Like, I'm
Yeah,
not
for
saying
real.
like not to downplay depression or anything like that, but like we've made a society where depression is like catching a cold. That's how easy it is to
Yeah,
get
dude.
now, just because of how fucked up shit is. That,
Yeah.
but if you have happiness, so like you can essentially override, like it doesn't mean no one will get depressed anymore, because depression's more of an apathy thing than like a sadness thing. But I think a lot more people would be able to do things, because I feel like if I'm going to go outside today, if I was sad or if I was happy, the chance of me saying yes to going outside increase if I'm happy versus if
Hmm.
I'm sad. So if people are happy and they want to start a revolution, the chances of that being more successful and people wanting to do it, I think, increase. And the people wanting to be kinder increase with more things of happiness and when happiness is involved. So yes.
So
Nice.
this was kind of hard for me because at first I thought, yes, I'm down, but as we
Yeah.
talked about it more, it seems like I want to say like overall things would be better, but when you really look at it, like there's, I guess like there's to me there's questions of like, okay, but if it actually happens, and sure, there's gonna be people like leaders who are trying to lead the way, but I feel like the mass would be not as productive overall, and that
Hmm.
would hurt. So I'm gonna have to go with no, based off like productivity, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I feel you, dude. That's what's trippy. Like the more we talked about it, the more my mind was being changed. I was like, wait, I thought it was like an obvious, like, yeah, most likely, assuming, like I said, from an outsider perspective, it might not seem that way. So I was like, if you're inside the world, it's probably just fine. But then as the more I thought about it, I was like, nah, it's actually kind of trash, bro. The world sounds kind of crazy. A little too much. It would make for a great sci-fi novel. As we were talking, I was like, wow, like this is a really good like satirical setup for like
That'd
a
be sick.
story. Like, you know what I mean? Like a person, like what a normal person, uh, falling into this world, and they're just bearing witness to all the now new normal standards of like just happiness. It's kind of funny.
Mhm.
Yeah, I want to write that. Maybe I might have to write that down. Shit.
All right. So for everyone listening, we're going to switch topics to we started leading into another topic that's talking about the American dream and ultimately like what people desire and how they set themselves up into wanting those things, and their goals are too high, which ultimately ends with them never being satisfied with the result,
Hmm.
even though the result could be a good thing or is a good.
Yeah. That's actually, it's funny that you put it that way, because that was actually way more eloquent than the how way I was kind of thinking of it. But that's so true. And like you said, I think like striving for, great things, or like, having $1 million, a mansion, all this stuff, like it's not necessarily a bad thing to strive for those things. It's good to have ambition and, goal oriented ways of thinking and behaving. But like the what ends up happening is just people just suffer on the road, and instead of, enjoying the journey, they're just so fixated on the end goal. And then most of the time it ends up being like a poor old Lenny just getting shot in the back of the head at the
Yeah,
lake, and nothing happened. Like you just suffered for, 30 years slaving away at whatever job, and the end result was still nothing.
So I'm gonna use the word powers that be.
Mm-hmm.
When I say that, I'm not referring to God or the universe. I'm referring to the invisible hand of power that essentially guides the society of America, that was built and crafted from since America was born. Because what I feel like a lot of people forget and tend to forget is that, like, they're like, oh my gosh, slavery's over, stop talking about that. I get that. No,
Mm-hmm.
that's fine. But when slavery began, and during that whole time, the economy of slavery was crazy. It's free labor. They literally made extreme amounts of money.
Oh, for sure.
Transferring into segregation, people who were racist, people who were making extreme amounts of money weren't black people, weren't people that weren't racist. Some weren't, but not most of them. So people who began to take power and who still control today were raised by people who inherently just were not great people. Sorry, not inherently great people. People who ended their lives not great people,
Yeah.
thus taught their children to inherently not really be the greatest people. So now, with the powers that be that guide our society and have all this money to put up ads and all this other stuff, and yeah, you have new money like Bezos and shit like that, but even them, they come from societies and places where they have influence from these other powers, that then, if they want to get into the upper echelon, you have to deal with these people. It just,
Yeah.
there's no other way
There's
to
no
do
other way.
it. So at the end
Literally.
of the day, they control the game. Now, since they're controlling the game, you have all the other peons, all the average people, all the people that are trying to make the society fucking work, living their life, and now the people who have power are telling you, hey, don't you want to live like us? Don't you want to live like the super rich people whose lives are completely unsustainable, but we only sustain it through making you
Yeah.
suffer every fucking day? And they put that on the screen. They say, hey, you should buy a bigger house or a bigger boat or more fresh kicks. You're not looking good enough.
Mm-hmm.
How can you be like this? And so now everyone's thinking that they're not enough the whole time, when at the first place they didn't even want anything. As a child, you knew what you wanted: to fucking catch bugs outside or
Mm-hmm.
fucking run around in circles for no goddamn reason. And all of a sudden now you want everything in the world, and it's ridiculous. So people are forced to crash and burn, but at the end of the day, the people at the top still make money regardless of how they live their lives. As long as they buy shit and work for them, they make money at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's fucking frustrating. And that is
Yeah.
harmful to happiness, when the people who run and control your society, and then you have emotions that are attached to society because society is attached to your survival, and they're forcing you to believe that happiness is only achieved this way. Now you feel unsuccessful in society, which makes you unhappy, but you also feel like you've already died because you feel like society was your only way to survive. So I think it's
Mm-hmm.
frustrating when people look at, like, oh, they're homeless. Why don't they try to do anything? Bro, they already went through and hit rock bottom and then got thrown under rock bottom into the pit of hell and despair. I'm not saying there isn't people who can't climb out, but if you believe that society is success, like, you're taught to believe that society is existence. So if you were not in society, you wouldn't believe you're really existing.
Yeah,
It would be
for sure.
hard if everyone that walks by you doesn't even acknowledge you, doesn't even want to look your way. Like, how can you say you exist if nobody else acknowledges your existence? And so, if you force people under this threshold and they believe that they are already dead, then just the fear of losing your job makes you think you'll die. And that threatens your happiness so much.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, dude.
what you're hitting on is very the basis of the issue stems from perspective. So a lot of these people who make these kind of arguments or talk about like the things they want or talk about other people who can't get things that they want and speak as if it's easy are speaking from a perspective because they've only seen one perspective. And
Yeah.
I would highly encourage anyone that if you want happiness and you're not finding it to um, educate yourself. And when I say educate yourselves, I'm not saying go to school. I'm saying
Nope.
do personal like research. Look into other cultures. Look into other countries and look at those things and understand like really understand like what's going on. And when you get so many different perspectives, you can kind of you can kind of get an idea of like how do I say it? You can get a realistic idea of like
Standard of living. What are you trying to say? Of ways of living, perhaps.
yes, like because again like that comes from when you want something or you see something someone who's not getting something, it's just miscommunication. And so like if they were able to understand that, then they wouldn't say those different things, and they'd be able to help or help themselves. And
Mm.
it's just I think I think you people should be introduced to many different cultures because I think that would be a big thing. It also stems from I would also suggest learn history. Like you're
Oh,
not
for sure.
like and this is some people might take this the wrong way, but I have to say it. Real history. History we are taught, at least in
Ooh.
American school, American
Oh, for sure.
education, we are taught
Trash.
through a perspective of
A white
white
perspective.
America. Yeah,
Land.
it's
Yeah.
a
The
perspective of white.
colonials.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you actually see like through history like what actually happened and when happened and why things happened, you'll have a much better understanding of why things happen. So those same people wouldn't be able to make those same arguments. Again, something Tyne brought up when he starts talking about racism. The people who are arguing, oh well, slavery happened years ago, blah blah blah. That's the same type of argument people made when people didn't want the segregation laws anymore. What's wrong with segregation? We're still equal. We're just separate. Those are the same
Hmm.
type of arguments they made. And if you looked at that, you'd be like, well, that's crazy. But you're making the same argument now because you're coming from a wrong okay, I'm not gonna say wrong. You're coming from a
Right.
perspective. And
Yeah, just one. It's just the one side of the story, the coin, as it were.
so if you experience all those things, you're likely to be more educated and understand why these things are. And I think find happiness better because you'll I don't know.
No, no, I agree with that. And to piggyback on that, especially with the educate yourself, like it's a very important thing. And school is, like you said, you do not need to go to school for it. I hate that
Trash.
they teach you that, oh, school's the way. And then you go to college and they tell you, oh, no, you're supposed to learn by yourself the whole time. And I'm like, you could have taught me that when I was younger. Anyway, but that aside, it's
Hmm.
like you can educate yourself. And to educate yourself doesn't also just mean, oh, go and read a bunch of articles. Articles are good and they're helpful. They help get a lot of experimental stuff. If you want statistics and things like that, they're nice. If you want specific views from specific people, they're really nice. But like
Hmm.
things that people don't do. You can watch anime and learn so much about Japanese culture. That doesn't mean watch anime and go, oh, if they did an anime, that's what they do in Japan. No. But if you watch multiple animes, just like if you watch multiple American TV shows, you notice the patterns.
Yep.
Those are
Tropes.
cultural things. Patterns and tropes are cultural things. Symbols, those are things that have
Yep.
happened in their culture that re-happen, so those people talk about it and they get it and they can make that connection. That's why they exist. Reading from other cultures is really important. Watching all types of media is really important. It doesn't have to be anime. There's J
Yeah.
dramas. There's fucking
There's
K.
harems. That's a very cultural relevant topic that I want to experience one day in Japan, of course. No, you're right. I want to broaden my horizon. Oh
Yeah.
shit, that's too
I guess
gold.
there's
But
there's some benefits of patriarchies, you
yeah,
know.
exactly.
True.
Oh shit.
Okay.
I
Oh shoot. Sorry. I didn't mean to derail you there. It just made me laugh. I was
no,
thinking
No,
to myself.
nothing's wrong with harems. I'm down with the.
Yeah. But it's
okay.
so true.
Just for
So
all the
true.
women out there, though, it's a non-sexist harem. I'm totally for all these women. I just love them so much. I
Yeah.
just believe that, if you have more love to share than
Look,
Yeah.
just
you know what? Not just for the one, for the men too. It doesn't have. It can be a reverse
That's
harem.
true. That's
It can be
true.
a reverse harem. You
True.
know,
Yeah,
porque no
reverse
los
harem.
dos. Hey, you know what I'm saying? You know, it is what it is. But
Honestly, I'll be a part of any woman, not any woman's harem. There's some women though, I'd be a part of their harem for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Beyonce, harem me up, kid. Let's go.
What's that Nate Dogg song that goes like, if the friends can't have some, it's no fun or some shit like that? You know what I'm talking about? If the homies can't have none, that ain't no fun. You know? Fuck it, man.
yeah.
I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Oh man. Well, okay. How do we re-rail ourselves now? It's like fuck.
Re-rail. So yeah. So like
Okay.
again, Japan. So like visiting Japan, but not just Japan. There's, Europe.
Sorry, we just love Japan.
Look.
That's the only culture we know.
Yeah, but there's Europe. You got like the UK.
South
There's like
America.
England, Spain, South America, Australia, I guess.
Oh, I love Australians.
Yeah.
Re-
There's some
really try to understand different walks of life and go like it's really good to meet people. Like meet people
Yeah.
that come from outside this country, or even just try to get to know them. And when you do it, don't be like, don't just try to like, how do I explain it? You can't bring it up like, hey, so like, how's this place? Like, don't be random, or you're gonna seem ignorant or annoying. Probably maybe one of your friends, and just have an actual conversation about their walk of life. Let's not walk up to people and say, so how's that third world country? Like, you know what I'm saying?
I always think that's so funny. It's just like
How's that third
they're
world?
literally normal people. Like if
We're all
you
the same.
walk up to your friend or a person on the street here, how would you address them? Just
Yeah.
be kind and respectful. It's really it's actually not hard.
Simple.
You don't
Yeah,
even have
it's
to do
pretty
anything
simple.
extra. It's more energy to be the dicks a lot of you are anyway, and it's
Yeah,
fucking
for sure.
irritating.
Yeah, for sure. We'll have
And I
to expand on that education topic another day because that's a whole different talk, man. I'm telling you. Because there's a lot of knowledge that's kept away from us, or like we're taught things that aren't as conducive to our societal well-being. Like we don't learn interpersonal skills for some reason in school. We don't learn like very practical skills. It's quite frustrating. It's not bad. Math and stuff and geometry and all these geography, whatever sciences are all good to know, but it has to have some practicality, or like I don't know. But like I said, this is a topic for another day. It just goes back to the ignorance of like people and the way they view other people. Like you said, like there's a very strong mentality in America where it's like, well, you can make it happen here. You just gotta pull yourself up by the bootstraps. These fucking homeless people just aren't pulling themselves up by the bootstraps. They don't have no ambition. It's like you don't know their situation. What are you talking about? Like you're just making blanket statements. It's never that simple, but it's easier to think in a black and white view like that, I guess. So maybe that's why they do it.
it was also easier back then. I mean, back
Oh, for
then all you
sure.
had to do was pull up your bootstraps. Like Now
For
we
real.
got other shit to do, other shit
Hmm.
to worry about.
Yeah,
And
jobs aren't the same.
I would love to hit this topic in the future because
Oh,
it's really big. And
hmm
specifically, I think this topic comes a lot with our generation because I think we're a little rebellious, our generation, and I think the older generation thinks they fucked up. Just to be honest,
yeah,
like
they do.
so.
They look down on us.
oh,
But
they did fuck up on us.
yeah. I mean,
Like,
like, yeah. Maybe we should save this for another
yeah,
Yeah,
episode.
yeah. I was
table
like,
it,
Yeah,
oh,
table it. It's all
ooh,
good. We were talking about happiness and American
yeah.
dream and stuff, but we were kind of on a good tangent. There's a lot to discuss even within that realm alone. It's like little subsections of a bigger picture. It's crazy.
Yeah, so we're on our last 5 minutes here, guys. Now we can
Shit.
do. I'm gonna have two more options. So we can hit our a really fast take on how we personally handle regret, or we can, do a little fun scenario if you guys are down to have an extra, go like a little bit over, like another 5 minutes over, and do like a fun scenario type situation.
What do you mean fun scenario? I don't understand.
you have any
Okay,
suggestions?
a fun
It's very
scenario like as in like a what if scenario. So like it could be anything from realistic to lighthearted.
absurd. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Like the everyone always has the which friends would you take to this apocalypse or whatever.
Mhm.
But I mean, I don't know. We've been kind of this 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 episode's been a little more serious. So I mean, if you guys want to do the handling regret, we can, or I'm down for either.
Let's handle regret real quick. You say we should all just give our own little spiel since we're short on time,
Yeah,
or ending our time, I should say.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Who's ready? Does anyone have something? I'll give me a minute to think because I have a pretty good idea.
I can go. So
Okay.
personally, regret for me, um, how I handle regret is I don't handle it. So when I say that, I mean I don't believe in regret, and like
Mhm.
it's too like having regret. I feel like there's no point in brooding over something that happened in the past. You did it. It was a mistake. Now move on. Now there's a very big difference between regretting something and knowing you made a mistake, apologizing for it, and learning and being better. I don't. I,
Mhm.
there's a I, there needs to be a word for it because I feel like that is always going to be called regret. But the regret has such a negative connotation for me. And to me, when you have regrets, it's like it's especially like when it's concerning something big. It's something that like if you have that, you won't be. That's one of the things that won't make keep you being happy. That's one of the things
Mhm.
that'll keep you unsatisfied. So that's
Oh,
why
for sure.
I personally don't believe in having regrets. If something I made a mistake, I remember it, I'm better for it, and I learn from it. And
Yeah,
that's what you
it
gotta
should
do.
be a growth thing.
Yeah.
I completely agree with what you just said, and that's actually like kind of like my answer. I guess we have a similar stoic philosophy about things. Um, there's like a few quotes that I like to always remind myself. It's like something like we don't suffer from the events of our lives, but rather from the judgments we make of them. So, and it's true. Like, for example, my mother could die tomorrow, some tragic death, whatever. And it's okay to be sad. I'm not saying to not be sad about it. But at the end of the day, there's no point in regretting something that you can't change. Like you said, that's outside of my control. I can't bring her back. I can't say I love her the day before, the day already passed. Time moves forward. So there's no use, at least to me, and holding regret or any sort of negative emotion when there's nothing you can do. The only thing you can really control in your life is your attitude, which kind of goes back to how we started the podcast, right?
Yeah.
Like, just be happy. Come on, bro. But nah, but there's a truth to that. There's only so much you have control of, and if there's something you want to control, it's yourself. So you can only just learn to not regret things, right? And like you said, it's not to mean that like you just do things willy nilly and just I don't regret it. Haha, fuck you. Haha, I don't care. I'm just thinking
Yeah.
about myself. Nah, like regrets a good thing in the sense that you want to feel bad about doing something, but not bad to the point that you don't do anything about it. Bad enough that you learn from it and move on. That's all you can do. as a human, at least in my mind. And that's why I think, yeah, fuck regret. But learn. Don't be a fucking dumbass and look like play blind eye or something. But be a better person. But don't have a regret. You're always gonna be better off just learning.
Really.
Damn. So it looks like we're 3 for 3 on no regrets.
No
Not even one
regrets.
letter. um, but yeah, no, I agree with that. But I would say I have. This is how I would explain it because I agree with you, Tyrell, and like we have this weird connotation on regret. So like it feels like there should be another word, but I think it's more like grudge. I think regret should be thought of more like grudge, where like
Mm-hmm.
do you hold grudges? Like is regret something you hold on to, or is it something
Mm.
you let go immediately? Like I can do something and I'm like, oof, probably shouldn't have done that. And I'm disappointed in myself. I regret it in that moment, but then
Yes.
as soon as I learn, as soon as I'm like, oh, shouldn't have done that. This is the better thing to do. That regret's gone. Like for me, regret is instantly
Yes.
processed out as opposed to being like, oh my god, I shouldn't have done that. A month later, oh my god, I
I
really shouldn't
know.
have done that. Oh no,
I know.
fuck that. Oh, no, 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 no. I
Stupid.
shouldn't have done that. I knew I shouldn't have done that, and we're done. Like I'm not gonna keep
That's it.
telling myself I shouldn't have done it. It's already done.
Yeah.
What?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like you said, why it's like the quote from Buddha. It's like anger or a grudge is something that you as a poison that the someone takes, thinking it's gonna kill the other person. The only person you're hurting is yourself when you're regretting and like holding on to something that you did a long time ago, and you just keep like replaying the event in your head. It's just moot. It's pointless. Just stop. Just
Yeah.
learn and move on.
I think that was great to bring up because it does work just like grudge and just like
Yeah. Perfect.
vengeance. Because there's people that will like have a relationship, right, and say they cheat on their partner and then they regret it
Mm-hmm.
and they feel so upset about it and their partner's moved on. Like they're regretting
Yeah.
this mistake and they're like upset about this mistake and their partner's like, bro, like I don't even care about that
Care. Yep.
anymore. I've fucked like 20 people since then. Like,
Yeah. Damn, that's perfect. You're right. I guess it would be akin to holding a grudge, holding a regret. That's the where the real problem arises, right? It's not necessarily a bad thing to feel like you did something wrong. That's a good thing. That means you can learn. Like we all seem to agree on. It's just funny. Like, yeah, you're right. We need a new word. Low key.
We should
Low
create
key.
it. But all right, guys, that is the end of this episode. Now we've had our boy Bruno come in for this week. I'm going to
Yes,
be
sir.
leaving a link to his YouTube channel down below. Please like, comment any new topics you guys would like to hear. Even we talked about wanting another word for what we were talking about. If you have any ideas, go ahead and leave that down below.
Yeah.
Thank you, and we're out.
Peace.
deuces.